Hello everyone, I'm Grandmaster Damian Lemos here for TheChessWorld.com. Welcome to a new course where we'll be talking about the Italian opening for white. So if you're looking for a great, resilient and reliable opening for white after e4, e5, stay tuned because we'll take a look at bishop c4 here. This is how the Italian opening begins. And in this course, we'll analyze a lot of games and we'll put emphasis on the plans for white. The Italian opening is one of those where you might benefit from memorizing theory, but I think the best way to approach it is by analyzing long-term plans. And the reason I say so is because in most lines we'll have a position with almost every single piece on board. And when you have every single piece on board, the options and the possibilities are endless. So unless you're relying on plans and middle game ideas, it'll be difficult to play. So we'll start with an intro, then we'll analyze most of the plans. We'll try to narrow it down to see all the ways black can play against the Italian, and also we'll see several plans for white depending on what black plays. But for this intro, we'll see the basic setup, what we're aiming for when we play the Italian as white. So hopefully my work will help you have a solid system for white. And this is a lifetime opening. Once you play the Italian, you get used to the structures. Then no matter what your opponent does, no matter if your opponent prepares before the game, it doesn't really matter. So long as you know the plans, you're good to go. So usually after bishop c4, black plays bishop to c5. Black wants to make sure his bishop is also outside the pawn chain. What do I mean by that? Is imagine instead of playing bishop c4 here, we play a move like d3. Well, that's okay. However, our bishop is not really active. If our bishop is on c4 instead, then we can play d3 and our bishop is on the right side of the diagonal. So that's the reason why we play bishop c4. We want to castle, of course, but we also want to make sure our bishop is on a good diagonal. The main reason we play bishop c4 as well, and this is a big idea here, we target f7. As we know, f7 is a weak pawn in black's position, only protected by the king. So in the long run, it's also something that could help us. So after bishop c4, black wants to do the same thing and goes bishop to c5. He wants to play d6 at some point, but first he wants to make sure the bishop is outside the pawn chain. So after bishop to c5, here we'll learn the basic setup for white, and you'll notice that in a lot of games the move order changes, but at the end of the day what matters is the structure we'll get. So in some games you'll see white castling first, in some games you'll see white playing d3, in other games you'll see white playing c3, but at the end of the day we end up with the same structure. So let me show you the structure first, and then we'll see a lot of move orders, and the games we'll analyze. Again, in some you'll see white playing c3 first, in other games you'll see white playing d3, castling. The move order is, first moves, not a big deal. So let me show you what I call the basic setup for white, which is quite good, by the way. So we castle. Black plays knight to f6. All right, so now black is attacking the pawn e4. So now we'll play d3. So we castle, pawn to d3. We've got our center. Our bishop on c4 is safe. Why do I say that? Because in some lines, we'll see that black wants to get our bishop by playing knight to a5. If he does it now, then pawn e5 is hanging, so there's no really a lot of compensation for black here. So let's say that black goes, he castles. So after he castles, then we'll play c3. So here we get the pawn structure we're looking for. We'll notice that c3 is always a useful move for white to control the d4 square. Maybe later on in the game we'll play d4, but mainly we prepare an escaping route for our bishop. And stay with me here because uh, you'll understand what I'm talking about, because at the moment it doesn't make a lot of sense that c3 prepares an escaping route for bishop c4. So after c3, let's say black goes d6. Now black defends the pawn e5, meaning that knight a5 might be a threat. When I say threat is that he wants to get our powerful bishop. It's not the end of the world if we exchange that bishop for black's knight, but we don't really want to lose our powerful bishop in the opening. As we know, bishops are usually slightly better than knights in open positions. So once he goes d6, we can play bishop to b3. Now, even if he goes knight a5, he can do whatever he wants on the queen side. Our bishop will safely hide on c2. So for instance, let's say, well, knight a5 now doesn't make any sense, because now the bishop is protected here, and then we can play b4. So let's say he goes a6, which by the way is a move that black plays a lot in these lines. So we go bishop c2. Now the bishop is safe. Let's say black hides the bishop on a7. As you can see, this is one of the main lines, and we see a lot of maneuvers, every single piece on board. That's why what I said earlier, memorizing, it doesn't make any sense. It's much, much better to know the ideas. So now we get our knight to d2. Let's say black plays rook to e8, h3, another useful move for white, because not only want to stop knight g4, bishop g4, the other idea we've got in mind is, and again, I'll keep on playing random moves to show you, is what I call the knight transfer to the king side. And that is by playing rook to e1, we need to free up the f1 square so that we can play knight f1, knight g3, and then we get a kingside attack. Sometimes it's knight f1 and knight e3 as well, but usually it's knight here and knight g3. So that's why we played h3 first. We don't want black playing knight g4, attacking our pawn f2. So by playing h3, we keep the kingside under control. Then it'll be easy for us to do the knight transfer to the kingside. And once all of our pieces are ready, and again, I'm just playing random moves here to illustrate the point. We'll see games where black plays better than this. But here you get an idea of what we're trying to achieve. The solid setup, d3, c3, our bishop perfectly safe and sound on c2. Sometimes it could be on b3, but we always have an escaping square to c2. Both knights on the king side, ready to attack. And then once we've got a great development, we can continue attacking, possibly playing bishop g5. In some lines, once all of our pieces are ready, d4 is also an option. Now, there are some issues for black here because I haven't played the best moves for him. So in this particular case, knight f5 looks pretty annoying, maybe even knight h4. Another plan I know is knight here, so then we can play queen f3 and then knight g4. So as you can see, plans are endless. See how all of a sudden all of our pieces are attacking on the king side. This is another great plan, knight h2, knight g4, because if he ever takes, let's see if I can make this happen here. I could even take with a pawn, and then slowly I'll just transfer my rook to h1. I'll play g5. It's a position where black has essentially nothing, and it's a one-sided game on the king side for white. I wouldn't be surprised if the engine says this is already winning for white. It says it's plus 1.2. Okay, that's a big advantage. It's almost winning. So this is what we're trying to achieve when we play the Italian as white. Of course, there are a lot of things to analyze along the way. This is what I call the basic setup. It is simple. I would say it's simple, but it is quite powerful. So now that we mentioned that, we know what we're aiming for, and we can see that no matter what black plays, we can still rely on that setup as white. So another example would be here. Let's say we go e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, so bishop c4. Now, bishop c5 is by far the most popular line for black. Now, that being said, a lot of players, they like playing knight f6, and here, if you've been around long enough, you know there's a well-known line for white. This is not the line we'll analyze in this course, because I really like playing d3 and just play the same way we just analyzed by playing like this, just playing the well-known setup. That being said, if black plays knight f6, there's the fried liver where white plays knight to g5, and then we get a lot of interesting lines here. Now, I have to show this, because otherwise this wouldn't be a complete course on the Italian. The fried liver goes b5. Black has to stop. Knight takes f7, so we take. Now the main line goes knight a5. It is a gambit where black usually gets a lot of compensation in return for the pawn deficit. And the main line is if knight takes d5, which looks okay, it actually runs into this powerful knight takes f7. We've got a fork here. Black has to take. Then we play queen f3 check. And as you can see, black is in big trouble. Unless he wants to lose a pawn and will take the piece back on the e5, he has to play king e6. But after knight c3, there's so many pins. The king on e6 is not going to last long, and this is just losing for black, because we'll make sure we open up the center, and before black knows, the king on e6 will be checkmated. So this is the main line, the fried liver. Of course, when black plays knight f6 here instead of bishop c5, he's fully aware of the theory, and after knight g5, he'll probably go for a gambit. And the lines here are not clear. I'll show you a little bit more just to show you why I don't like this for white. We're up a pawn. At the same time, black has a lot of attack. As you can see, we're just moving our pieces backwards. We don't really have a lot of space. And in the opening, I don't like losing the initiative, let alone if I'm playing white. Remember that in the opening, material is not as relevant as the initiative or development. So whatever black does, we'll just stick to the fundamentals, and our plans, they don't change at all. In fact, if black plays bishop c5 here, we'll transpose into the line we mentioned, the first line we mentioned. So this is what we're trying to do in the Italian. This is a little intro because there are so many things I would like to say about this system for white, but it would take me hours and hours. So I tried to do a draft and mention what we call the basic setup. And from next chapter onwards, what we'll do is we'll start analyzing games. And as we analyze them, we'll come across a lot of ideas. But that's what we'll do in this course. I'll choose a lot of games that I think are model games, and we'll focus on the plans and we'll see how they work in practice. So that's going to be it for this intro. Hope you found this useful. Hope you learned something. I will see you guys on the next one. Thank you.